Hey guys, it's Jenny here, and I have my nephew Jake here. So today I'm coming at you with my my favorite books of the year. So since it's 2017, I'm doing my 17 favorites of 2017.
Can I grab them?
No.
Can I grab them first?
Maybe, I don't know.
Oh,
so I'm gonna be going in
order.
order. Hang on. I'm gonna be going in order. So I'm gonna be doing like my least I'm going from 17 to number 1 and I kind of cheated a little bit. Can you turn off the light? There's like a glare on the screen.
Okay.
I think it'll work. And so yeah, I kind of grouped series that I really liked together. So that and then sometimes I just split up the series. How about you can start grabbing from here so that it doesn't fall down from up there. We have a giant book tower right here, and I'm really scared it's gonna fall. Okay. So don't grab yet.
It's huge.
Okay. Number 17 is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is basically a retelling of Cinderella, but it's centered on a cyborg in New Beijing. And basically it has to do with android lunar cyborgs, and it's a twisted retelling of Cinderella, and it was just really good. I just found it hard to resume through the series, but this was a really good read of mine. It got me out of a book slump, so that's number 17. It's gonna suck putting these all back because I took apart all of my shelves to try to find these. Number 16 is Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. This centers on a girl whose name is Alex, and after her sister is brutally murdered, she sets out to kill the person that killed her sister because the killer was never brought to justice, even though they knew who killed her sister. So she goes and kills him, and basically afterwards she has a very violent history, and she becomes friends with a jock and the preacher's child, and it's just a story about how her darkness inside of her kind of it was just a really powerful story, and it made me cry a lot, and I just really loved this book. So yeah, this was number 16.
Now can I grab?
When we get to that one. Okay, so number 15 is the Trials of Apollo series by Rick Riordan. My favorite out of these two is actually Dark Prophecy, but I also really liked Hidden. Hang on.
Wait, that's by the person that writes Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
I like the book.
So my favorite of the two is Dark Prophecy, and then Hidden Oracle, but I really enjoyed them both. Basically, the centers on the god Apollo, the god of the sun, music, poetry, healing. He gets cast down from Olympus by Zeus, and has to live his life as a mortal. And he gets help from our Greek friends from Percy Jackson, and they help him try to regain.
Percy Jackson in it?
Yes, a little bit. And so he gets to regain they try to help him regain his, immortality by completing a couple of trials. So, yeah, Hidden Oracle, then the Dark Prophecy, and then I don't remember what the third one is. Burning Maze is the third one.
You have them?
No.
You got it?
No.
You gotta get it.
It comes out in spring 2018.
Oh, it didn't come out?
Nope. So, yes, these were number 15. Honestly, I just really love Rick Riordan's writing style, and it makes me love mythology so much when he writes about it. And also, these books were just so funny, but they also made me cry at some time, so it's comedic relief, but it also kind of makes you cry, if that makes sense.
I've never cried in a book, but I cried in Arrow last night.
Number 14 is The End of Oz by Danielle Page. This is book 4 in the Dorothy Must Die series, and I really loved this book. I'm gonna have to reread it now that I have all of the books in the series here.
Dorothy still must die in that? Mm-hmm. She still needs to die?
Yes.
Why?
You'd have to read the book. And yes, so I just really love this book. I can't really go into depth about it because it is the 4th book, but yes, this series was just really, really good.
I didn't know that it was the whole series. I thought it was just Dorothy Must Die.
1, 2, 3, 4. But yes, I really love this book. I was crying in this too, like bawling my eyes out in this, I'm pretty sure. And it's been a while since I've read this. It was like March, so almost a year. And yeah, this was such a good conclusion to the series. I hope she writes another one, but I don't think she will. So number 13 is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. My cat ruined this book, and I'm forever sad about it, but...
Does this go with that series?
It's just the same author. Yeah, my cat kind of ruined this book.
Where? Doesn't look ruined to me.
You'd know. It just doesn't shut all the way now, and it's kind of annoying. But, yeah, this is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. I'm gonna do this without the jacket. Heartless by Marissa Meyer because it's so gorgeous without its cover, without its jacket. It's leather, and it's pretty.
This is awesome.
But yes, this Heartless centers is the backstory of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. What's her name? Catherine. She is the daughter of the
Queen of Hearts?
March and Marchioness of Heartland, the Pinkertons. Yes. And they want her to marry the king because the king fancies her, but she ends up falling for the king's jester. And yeah, it's the story of how she became the Queen of Hearts and how she became so heartless. And honestly, this book was so good, and then I just started crying at the end. I was really mad, and I was gonna say that I hated this book, but I don't. It's just really made me mad at the end.
I want this book. I want to read it. I can't wait.
It just gives you some sympathy for the bad guys, I guess. And it just makes you really understand why they do what they do. I mean, sure, it doesn't really condone it, but it makes you just understand, like, the things that they went through. So, number 12 is Breaking Dawn by Stephanie Meyer. This is book 4 in the Twilight Saga, and this is my favorite one of the Twilight Saga. I read Twilight in February, the whole saga, and...
Really?
Yeah, I thought that Eclipse was going to be my favorite, but then Breaking Dawn came in the mail, and I just loved it so much. There was just... I know everybody's going to hate on me for still loving Twilight, but, like, I just love Twilight so much. And Breaking Dawn was just...
What's so bad about that?
I don't know. But, Breaking Dawn, it just had so many good elements to it, like... It just, I can't even explain it. It just had, like, it was, like, action and romance and comedy and friendship and family all at the same time, and I just really loved it. I can't go into depth about it because it is the 4th book, but who really hasn't read Twilight at this point, honestly?
Me.
So yes, Breaking Dawn earned spot number 12 for 2017.
You have one of them.
Okay.
Queen of Hearts.
For number 11, I have Queen of Hearts by Colleen Oakes. This is yet another Alice in Wonderland retelling. This centers on the Princess of Hearts named Dina. She is the daughter of the King of Hearts who rules Wonderland, and she's been training all her life to be the Queen of Hearts. But her father hates her after her mother died, and he's just a bad person.
So, if... That doesn't make sense. Like,
so,
did she kill her?
No.
Then why does he hate her?
Because he's a bad person.
That's stupid.
Anyways, she has never had a good relationship with her father, but she's been training to be the queen this whole time. Then stuff happens, and she just feels like an evil brewing in Wonderland and in herself. And it's just her journey throughout it, and, yeah, it was just such a good book. I was, like, so shocked. Like, the first plot twist comes within, like, the first couple chapters, and it had me shook, and it was just such a good retelling. Like, it's another, like, reason why it could mean why the Queen of Hearts was so evil in Alice in Wonderland.
Shatter Me.
So, number 10 is Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. I actually read this last year, too, but I reread it this year because Restore Me is coming out in the spring, and I'm so excited. Shatter Me is finally getting a 4th book, and I'm so excited. So I reread it.
Which one's that? The first one or the second one?
First. And I just adore this book so much. It just centers on a girl named Juliet who has powers that can kill people. With her touch, you can kill people.
That'd be kind of awesome, but kind of horrible at the same time.
Yes, so she has powers that can kill people, so anytime she touches anybody, she kills them.
On accident? Like, she can't control it?
No.
Okay, that sucks.
She tried to help a kid up and ended up killing him. He fell down in the store, and she tried to help him up, and then he ended up dying. But yes, then, so her parents send her to an insane asylum, and she's trapped in there, but she meets a boy, and yeah, and...
Is that when she didn't know she had powers?
Yeah, she didn't know. And this was just such a good book. It was totally worth the reread, and I cannot wait for Restore Me.
Can I see it?
I'm going to have to reread the rest of the trilogy.
I'm sort of interested.
So, number 9 is...
Where are you putting all these?
3 Dark Crowns. Oh, my bad. Number 9 is 3 Dark Crowns by Kendar Blake. This centers on the 3 queens of Fenburn, each of them with a different power. Okay, we're just going to resume. Each of them has their own power, and when they turn 16, they all have to fight each other for who is going to be the ruler of Fenburn. And honestly, this book was slower than the sequel. I favored the sequel more, but this still belongs on my list because I wouldn't have read the sequel if it wasn't for this one. So, for number 8, I actually have Mosquito Land for David Arnold, but I lent it out to a friend about a week ago, so I don't have it with me. But basically, Mosquito Land just centers on a girl who...
I thought you didn't like that book.
I love that book! Anyways. Mosquito Land centers on a girl who is not okay. She gets shipped off to a different state with her father and her stepmother, and they move her away from her mom. And then she discovers in her book, in some letters, that her mom might not be okay. And she ends up going on a road trip and running away to find her mom. And she ends up meeting people on the way there and encountering many troubles and struggles. And honestly, that book was just so, like, I don't know.
All of the books you read, I want to read.
It was
every
just,
time
like...
you talk about them in these videos, they sound really good.
It was just so powerful, and it made me cry at the end. I ended up loving it so much. I just loved that book a lot. And it was so funny at the same time. Like, it was making me laugh, but it was also making me cry because she's funny, but the stuff that was happening was, like, so sad. But yeah. Anyways, number 7 is Dumplin by Julie Murphy. This centers...
What does it look like? It says, like...
What are you talking about? It's gonna show up regular on the camera.
I know.
But yes, this is basically like centers on a plus-size girl named Willow. In her town, she's shamed for her plus size. But her mom is an beauty queen. Her mom is an ex-beauty queen, and her best friend is beauty queen material. And she just feels pressured and left out around her, so she decides to just screw the stereotype and enter the beauty pageant. And it's just like she helps people along the way who also have insecurities to join the pageant as well. So a whole band of like unlikely contenders just joined this beauty pageant. And this book was like so funny and fun to read, and it had like the cutest romance in it, and I really love this book. I would totally reread it again. I'm usually not into contemporaries very much, but I loved this book so much. It was like a comedy / romance / coming of age. It was just, I loved it. So here's one of my cheating things, because number 6 is the Selection Trilogy. So in order, my favorite was actually 3, 2, and then 1. But yes, I really love the Selection series. Basically, the Selection series centers on a girl named America Singer, who she is pretty sure she is, I don't remember. She's a certain number in society that makes her not as wealthy as the rest of them, and her parents want her to enter the selection, which the selection is basically a contest where 35 girls enter the selection to win the chance of being the prince's wife and win his hand in marriage. And yes, so this is her story throughout the selection, and it's like a trashy YA novel, but it's like a good trashy YA novel. Like, I don't mean trashy in a bad way. When I say trashy, I mean it's like the book I go to get out of a slump, or the book I go to for a quick read, and I really love this series. Honestly, I love the sequels more than the first book because they were just so much more in depth, and they made me love the characters even more. But the first book, without the first book, I wouldn't have gotten into the other ones, obviously. So I just love this whole series so much. So number 5 is a book that I just finished yesterday, and that's Karvall by Stephanie Garber. I love this book so much. I was really hating it there for a little bit, but basically this is about 2 sisters named Scarlett and Donatella Dragna. They live on the Conquered Isles of Trista, and so going to Karvall is like this magic island where you get to play this game full of magic and mystery and mayhem, and they always warn you that nothing is actually real, and you always have to remember that it's a game, because if you get swept too far away into the game, you can go insane. But playing in the game Karvall has always been a dream for these sisters, and they've been writing to the master of Karvall, whose name is Legend, for years. And one year he finally responds, and they ended up getting swept into Karvall, and this adventure just had me going the whole time. I read this in like 3 days, and again, I was crying, and I was like laughing at some parts, and I just was like gushing at some of the romance, but mostly crying. And yeah, I just really, really love this book. I would recommend it immensely.
Jenna, once I spent the night at Mandy's, and I brought 2 Magic Treehouse books. One I already started, one I haven't, and I finished both of them while I was there.
Good job. Okay, so number 4 on my list is One Dark Throne by Kendra Blake. This is the sequel to 3 Dark Crowns.
Ooh, I didn't know you liked this one.
I love that book.
Well, I did, but...
So, yes, this is the sequel to 3 Dark Crowns. So I can't really go into depth about this, but I just really, really, really loved this book. Mostly because it tied up the loose ends that we had in the first book. It gave me more connection to the characters, so it made me love them even more than I already did. And it just builds such a really powerful story, and it gives more detail to the relationships and the family and the just friendships, and I just really love this book. It's so, I can't even put it into words. I love this book, and I can't wait for the 3rd one. So yes, that earned number 4. Number 3 is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. This centers on a girl named Audrey Wadsworth, and I believe this is set in the 1880s. This is 1888, and she is, apprenticing with her uncle in his forensic science shop. And being a forensic scientist was kind of frowned upon for the women in the 1880s, so she's kind of like a tomboy, but she's like still into the dresses, and so she likes to be pretty, but she loves to get like her hands dirty, if that makes sense. And so she is apprenticing with her uncle, trying to figure out who Jack the Ripper is and why he's terrorizing London.
Is he like a vampire?
No, that's the 2nd book. But anyway, she's trying to figure out who Jack the Ripper is and why he's terrorizing London. And the plot twist at the end had me going so hard. I believe you guys saw me. I am pretty sure I posted a video of me finishing this book, and I was crying over it. Shocker. Noticing that all of the books on this list have made me cry, and that's why they earned their place on this list. Anyway, yeah. This was such a good book. I loved how she's just doing what all the women in that time were afraid to do, and how she just didn't really listen to the people who were telling her she couldn't do what she wanted to do, and she just did it anyway. And she didn't really care about, the judgment. And the plot twist at the end was so great, and this was just a really good read. It was great. So, number 2 on this list is another cheat sheet, and that is The Wrath and the Dawn and The Rose and the Dagger, this duology. These books have a piece of my heart. So this, God, what is her name? What's her? Shahrazad. So yes, this centers on a girl named Shahrazad who ends up volunteering to be the
Queen.
Caliph of Khalid, who is the Caliph of Khorasan, needs a new wife, and every wife that he's taken so far has ended up dead the next morning with a silk cord wrapped around her neck. And Shahrazad knows that somebody in her city is going to be next because he had taken her best friend as his wife, and she ended up dead. So Shahrazad, I'm just going to call her Shazi because I don't like saying her full name, and that's her nickname in the book anyway. So Shazi volunteers to be his wife, and he's confused, and her father's mad about it, and her sister's mad about it. But she volunteers to be his wife to put an end to him. She plans on killing him or finding enough information to bring him down. But she ends up surviving the dawn in the next after that, and the next after that. And because he comes into her room, and she spins these beautiful stories, and he just gets captured by them, and she just survives the night. And then she learns that there's much more to him that meets the eye, and that he may not be as evil as he is put out to be. And so this one was great, but this one was my favorite. And funny story that goes with this one, I can't go into depth about this one because this is a sequel, but when I was reading this book in English class, at the ending, I was crying so hard. I didn't realize I was in English class because I was so zoned out. But I'm sitting in the front row.
You were telling me about?
Yes. I'm sitting in the front row of my English class, just reading this book, crying my eyes out in English class. And I didn't even realize I was in English class until the teacher comes up to me. She's like, Jenna, are you okay? And I'm like, oh. And then I realized that everybody was staring at me. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I closed the book and I'm like, oh, everybody's staring at me. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm like, can I go get my spare book? And everyone's like, she has a spare book. Yeah, that's what set them off. Not the fact that I was crying over a book, but that I had a spare book in my locker is what set them off. But yeah, that's my story that goes with this book, is that it made me cry so hard that I cried in school over it in the middle of class. This book was so good. So finally,
and then these are your favorites, of course, because I
the
feel
books
like
that earn the #1 spot. I'll give you guys 3 guesses. 1, 2, 3. What are my favorite books of 2017? It's obviously the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. Obviously, what else would it be? So these are my favorite books. Yes, they are. So this is probably my least favorite one, but I still love it anyway.
This is the first one?
Yeah, this one is what made me fall in love with the series. ACOTAR centers on a huntress named Feyre, who is trying to feed her starving family. So she sets out in the woods and ends up killing this wolf, who ends up being a fae. So then a fae busts down her door and demands retribution for her crime. And she ends up getting whisked off to the lands of Prythian to serve out her life sentence for killing a fae. And the beast that actually took her to Prythian is not just a beast, but he is the High Lord of the Spring Court named Tamlin. And so her hostility towards him starts turning into passion, and my book. And she ends up having a soft spot for Tamlin and, his court. And then she discovers that his court is being plagued by a darkness that could be a threat to the human realm, and she wants to do anything to stop it, and yeah, it's so good.
That sort of reminds me of Harry Potter. Just because it does.
More like Beauty and the Beast. And I honestly can't decide which one of these is my favorite. I mean, I have 2 Court of Mist and Furies.
Yeah, and they're both on
I
hardcover.
really, really do like Court of Mist and Fury.
You have to have whoever.
I think Court of Mist and Fury is my favorite. Mostly because it builds the bridge to my favorite relationship, and it just shows their progress throughout it. Yeah, this one is my favorite because this one made me cry too much. Okay, I will explain why this one is my favorite. So,
Want me to go put them over there?
Put the first one over there.
You probably won't let me throw it.
No. Court of Mist and Fury is my favorite because basically it builds the bridge between my two favorite characters and their relationship. And really, there's just like, there's more character build. I need that. I need to explain. There's more character building in this, and it just makes you love the characters even more. You just get more into depth with the characters, and you grow to love them more. And there's just more friendship and relationship developing in this one, and I just loved it a lot. It focused more on the characters rather than like the politics or the action. It was mostly all just focusing on how the characters form their bonds, and I loved that about it. And then the reason why this is my second favorite is because while there was a lot of really good character like bonding in this book, it was a lot of action, and it was really hard for me to get through when I was rereading it the second time. The first time I flew through it, but the second time I was just like, oh, just get me back to the characters. But yeah, so Court of Mist and Fury earns as my favorite book of 2017.
Now can I put it over there?
So yes, thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And don't hesitate to comment down below. And yeah, let me know what your favorite book of 2017 was. And pretty soon I will be making a video of my least favorite books of 2017. Thanks for watching, guys.